experimentation. So I told you today was going to be rather about experimentation. Up until now, most of it has been sort of reasonably straightforward, but we're going to delve into the potential for doing some aspects of this stuff using a build out that allows us to really customize the stuff that we're going to work on. So if I go back over here and actually remember to hit the right button this time. So what we want to be able to do for a product build out, if this was for real, is be able to allow for a number of different interfaces on the same data. Because what we're really trying to do is allow for the reuse of data and the consistency of data across an entire platform, entire product base, so that you haven't got duplicate data, you don't have to manage it twice, and really allow for that sort of security and logic to play itself out across an entire organization, so that you then have a lot more consistency in the data that you own inside of your platform. So what we've looked at so far, we've gone from, and again, I apologize for my handwriting, which you can actually see in real time this time. If I go from here to then adding, this is our Excel sheet. Now, of course, the data that got fed into Excel has come from a range of different places. That's probably a database that you've already got in your system. So that, if you're moving away from an Excel distribution model, might go away. But then what we've done so far is then hand this off to Seku. So I will, just so you can play buzzword bingo, this is an OLAP browser. So Seku is an OLAP browser. It runs OLAP models. That's the XML file that we designed back at the start of the second phase. But of course, what you end up doing is then allowing, let me draw my favorite stick person. So stick person interacts with Seku OLAP from a UI, basically the thing that we have just done. So they can come along, they can click, they can look at some dashboards, they can look at some reports, they can do a range of different things, just dragging that data around. And because they have to log in, that is also secure in terms of allowing them access to only to the data that they're allowed to see. And it's consistent across the organization. They could have a range of different cubes, a range of different models to look at, but they all come from the same place and are served by the same service. Now, of course, these days, there's a bazillion and one different ways of being able to interact with the data that's inside of your database. Of course, the most obvious one that I'm about to draw down here is an LLM. So, assuming you've not been living in a barn, or even if you've been living in a barn, if you haven't heard of an LLM, we're basically talking about ChatGPT, Claude Code, Codex, some model that allows you to be able to type something into it, Gemini, all those types of things, and then you get an output out the far end. So a large language model, that's what LLM means, and it means basically you type something in and you get text back as a response. Now, of course, LLMs have the ability to then interact with a range of different tooling. And so one of the things that we've built into Seku is allowing it to then interact with an OLAP cube using a couple of different APIs, like interface layers into an application. So one of the services that has been made trendy by Anthropic is a service called an MCP. And that service allows for interactivity between an LLM and a back-end service. But not everything needs to use an MCP server. So we also have, they're sort of tied into one another, but basically an AI API. And that allows for programmatic access and querying of anything inside of the Seku OLAP service. It uses the same security, it uses the same models, and that means that then your LLM is then being constrained as to what it can do by the data that's coming from Seku. This obviously then allows for users to be able to ask questions, but not have like free reign of a database where the LLM might try and stick multiple tables together that don't make sense, because we've already defined what that model looks like up here. A user or an LLM that is being used by a user then doesn't need to figure out what that model looks like. So, another stick person. There we go. Stick person types something in. Request goes to LLM. LLM then queries Seku. Seku gives it a response. Response goes back to Stickman. So that allows us to then build out an interaction that we're going to try in a minute. And like I said, I haven't tested any of this. And it runs in Seku Cloud. I haven't tried it locally on a laptop in a while. So this is where it's all going to get a little bit weird. But we're going to try and hook up an LLM and start asking questions. And then off the back of that, the other thing that we're going to have an attempt at is sometimes companies just want a nice looking, iPad app that sits in an app store that's, branded up and everything's nice. And then when they've got a new customer or whatever come on board, sorry, my face is in the way, there we go, iPad app. When a new customer comes on board, they can download the application, they can log in using whatever details. And so, if you're third-party user over here, you then use the iPad app. And the iPad app, of course, needs to be able to get data as well. So you've then got a layer that then hits the API back here and also then queries for the same data. Now, Seku OLAP could be anything. It's just, the application that we manage. But this could be a range of different services sat inside of a cloud environment that serves up data that allows you to be able to interact with it. And so, if you're using AWS Bedrock to be able to deal with MCPs, you might be handing off to, another modeling facility, and that's absolutely fine. If you're using an iPad app, you've definitely got more stuff than just Seku OLAP sat here, but I'm trying to keep it simple, where you've got an API boundary and then stuff going off internally in a cloud environment. So don't start judging me on the on the accuracy of how this would actually play out in real life. But this is the type of flow that we're now going to try and have a look at inside of the rest of today, where we build in interactions with LLMs in a simplistic model, and then we're going to try and build an application that then leverages the REST APIs of Seku to then be able to build out some sort of UI that I have not yet defined, and we will figure out.